Hello English teachers, today we are going to learn difference between L1 and L2. L1 is a language that we learn when we were born, and L2 is that language that we learn when we go to school or when we are adult. So let's see differences. So the first difference is connected to age. So in L1 learning, learners start when the learning starts when the learner is a baby. So continues through the early years of childhood and lasts into adolescence for some kinds of language and language skills, e.g. academic writing or writing for school or university. So adolescence means being a mature or being an adult. And in L2, learning usually starts in primary school or secondary school, and it may also start or continue in adulthood. And in L1 learning, babies learn language at the same time as their cognitive skills develop. So cognitive skills are the skill like the mental process involved in thinking or understanding or learning and understanding abstract things and so on. So and when we learn a second language, primary learners are still developing many of their cognitive skills, and secondary school learners have already developed many of their cognitive skills by the time they start learning a foreign language, and their attitudes towards learning and learning the foreign language may or may not be mature, so means fully developed. So and adult learners have fully developed their cognitive skills, and they are likely to show maturity in their attitudes to language learning. So next difference is learners are motivated to learn language as they need to communicate. For example, so as a baby, when we think as a baby, we need to communicate with people. So we are so motivated to communicate with our parents, with our brothers, sisters, and when we learn L2, adult and some secondary learners may already have expectations about how language should be learned and may have past experience of learning foreign language, and may or may not be fully motivated to learn the language. And so as an adult or as a teacher or as a student, we may have high motivation or average motivation or low motivation at all, or no motivation at all. And so context and ways of learning in L1. So we learn L1 by exposure to variety of language and picking up language, hearing the language around us all the time. And we learn L1 by learning a lot of language in chunks. So when we learn L1, we learn language in parts. We learn language part, for example, like go to school, language chunks like language parts. So next, so context and ways of learning in L2, sometimes through exposure, but often by being taught specific language items. So When we learn L2, we are expected to learn specific language. We learn from textbooks mostly, and often by focusing on structures and individual words. So when we learn a foreign language at school or at some courses, we usually focus on some kind of structures or some kind of vocabulary. So in L1 learning, we learn L1 by wanting and needing to communicate. So we had strong motivation when we were baby. So we learn L1 through interaction with our family, when we learn L2, we may learn a second language with strong, little or no motivation to communicate. We learn L2 through interaction with a teacher and sometimes with our classmates. We have not much opportunity to interact with a lot of people, sometimes we interact only when we are in the classroom, and there is no interaction outside the classroom, and learning will be difficult. So the next one, in L1 learning, we learn L1 by talking about things present in our surrounding and by doing things. And in L2, we often learn L2 by talking about life outside the classroom, not around, like surroundings around us. So the next difference is we learn L1 by listening to and taking in language for many months before using it, and it's called a silent period. And we learn L1 by playing and experimenting with new language. And when we learn L2, often by needing to produce language soon after it has been taught. So when we learn L2, for example, we learn some kind of language or function, for example, promising or giving advice. Then we practice it, we produce it as soon as possible. So silent period, when we learn L2, silent period is not too long. Maybe it may be 2 weeks or 1 week or maybe 1 day. So when we learn L2, we should produce the language that has been taught immediately. So we learn L2 often by using language in controlled practice activities and being corrected, sometimes by playing and experimenting with new language. So nowadays teachers are asked to use more games in the classroom because it will be engaging. But we should also do controlled practice activities before freer productive activities. So L2 learning is a bit difficult than L1 learning. So next one. So we learn L1 by having lots of opportunities to experiment with language. And so when we were a baby, 1 year old, for example, when we began to speak at last, we had a lot of opportunities to experiment the language that we learned. And when we learn L2, the learner is not exposed to the L2 very much, often more than about 3 or 5 hours per week. So in some schools 3 hours, in some schools 5 hours, depending on the school curriculum per week. So so we learn L2 by getting lots of praise and encouragement for using the language. So our parents, our brothers or sisters give a lot of praise when we produced some kind of language. For example, papa or mom, like these words. When we produce, they gave us praise and encouraged us for using the language. And in the classroom and in L2 learning, teachers vary in the amount of praise and encouragement they give learners. Some teachers may give a lot of praise or encouragement and some not. And the learner may receive little individual attention from the teacher and not interact much. And it's a big deal. And with for example 20 or 30 students, a teacher may not have a chance to contact individually to every student, so there is not much individual attention from the teacher and not interact much. So next, we learn L1 by hearing simplified speech and by rarely being corrected. Instead, people often reformulate what the child has said. For example, maybe a baby says, I go to my grandmother's yesterday, and a parent may say, oh, you went to your grandmother's yesterday? So the parent has just reformulated what the baby has said. And so when we learn L2, teachers usually simplify the language they use, but sometimes not. Teachers often correct learners. Learners are often asked to produce correct language. They may or may not be given opportunities to make mistakes and experience. So it is the end of our session. Thank you for watching the video, and we shall make another video about differences between L1 and L2 learning, and shall do some tests. So see you again virtually.